Folks, we are blessed to have Mr. Brian Adamson with us each week because he brings just an authentic truth in a way of just crystallizing communications on very important topics. And Brian, you brought a topic today that I will let you kind of kick off because it's so true.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for having me, Mike. It's always a pleasure, man, when we get to link up. So this topic came to me about an hour ago because I think it's probably, for new investors at least, they believe that acquiring their first property is the hardest thing to do. And I want to insert that acquisition is actually the easiest part of the entire process. Right? Now, when you first get started, you don't have a lot of deal flow, you don't have a lot of relationships. Maybe you don't know how to raise capital, you don't know how to put the capital stacks together for your deals. And so you believe that that's the hardest part, only until after you close, though. Mm-hmm. And then you quickly figure out, hopefully, that was actually the easiest thing that you could have done, because now you're dealing with contractors. You have to get, so I always say it this way: acquisition is easy, execution is difficult. Yes. Right? And so we get so fixated on acquiring the property and we think that that's our trophy, not understanding that if there's a rehab component to this thing, or a lease up component thereafter, life just got really challenging, because now you have to manage people on your behalf to get this thing to a point where it's actually profitable for you. And that's the most challenging part throughout the entire process. So I'll start there. I'll send it back to you, Mike, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things that this just hits home with me. The last 3 or 4 years, financial engineers have been winning. Syndicators with no operational experience, who know how to play with spreadsheets, who got lucky with cap rates collapsing and rates falling to lifetime lows, printed money. The acquisition was the easy part. Mm-hmm. Now that everything is reversed, we're realizing that operations, value add, contractors, tenants, that's all so much harder. The other thing I always remember is properties are for sale every day in the MLS. You want to buy one? Write a list price offer. You got a pretty good chance. That's gambling. Buying something is not to be celebrated. In fact, Brian, I would much rather celebrate writing an offer below asking because you know your numbers and getting told no. That is something I'll celebrate. Buying something out of the MLS just because you had some money and some credit, it's not that hard to do. That's certainly not very impressive.
For sure. For sure. And I want to highlight this, Mike, because I don't think we talk about the operation side enough. And maybe you do with some of your other people. I know for our conversation, we don't talk about it enough, in my opinion, that I want people to beware as they go out there, to understand that if you don't, number one, know how to find good contractors, secondly, how to manage contractors, even the good ones, it's the fastest way for you to lose money in this business. Because if they cannot execute, you cannot win. I don't care how good the deal pencils on the front end. If you have poor execution and you can't rent that thing out and or sell it, you just lost. And so, I want people to really, as they go through this process of doing the work, right, and doing the daily discipline and underwriting deals, to really start thinking about and even seeking how to manage the back end of the process, because that's the most important part. Everybody, you got to understand something as a real estate investor. Everybody gets a check before you do.
Yes.
From the time you buy that property, the contractor, the agent, the title company, the appraiser, everybody has gotten a check before you. And the only way for you to get a check is if all these other people do everything that they're supposed to do on your behalf. And I'm going to tell you right now, one of the fastest ways for you to start to safeguard yourself against the reality of losing money dealing with contractors is you got to pay them in arrears.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
One of the biggest challenges that I see with new investors is they go out there, a contractor sends them over a contract, which is an invoice with a signature line. It's not a contract. They sign it. They're excited to get the work started. Contractor says, give me 50% down. and I want to simplify this for you, because you're gonna struggle when you go out and have this conversation with a contractor. So I want to preempt what's going to happen.
Yep.
Contractors are going to request 50%. You're going to know that something is not right about that, but you're going to feel uneducated and uncomfortable about challenging that, because you think at that point that you need them. And to some degree you do, but not at your expense and detriment. So here's the question you have to ask yourself. Let's just say you got a 4-week project. If I give you 50% up front, can you do 50% of the work in week 1? The answer is always no. Right. That simple logic alone will help you to go out there and challenge contractors to give them something fair as a deposit to safeguard and insulate yourself from giving them 50%. They run off or do something unscrupulous with the money, and all of a sudden you don't have enough backing to then go finish the project. One of the first things that you can do fundamentally sound is go out there and give small deposits based on the scope of work that they can complete in week 1. After they do that, you continue to pay them in arrears based on work completed.
Yeah. Just so we can try to give folks a number, what do you think's a small number? Are we talking 10%? What do we?
We average in our program 10, 12%.
Yeah. That's about where
10, 12%. You know, because that should give you demo and then a deposit on the first phase. So if it's roof and the roof is 12 grand, you know, and I gave you 7 to start, you got some money to start doing the tear off, buying material. By the time you finish that roof, then I'll pay you the remainder of the roof and whatever else that you completed. But it's give them a small deposit, something that won't kill you. You know, if you got a $60,000 rehab and they run off with 7 grand, you can still salvage that deal. You got a $60,000 rehab, you give them 30 up front, and all of a sudden they stop answering the phone, or you got a big problem on your hands.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And the other thing that I think is really important, one of the things that I hear about is, I guess this is I've since learned it's a bigger pockets thing. I didn't know it was a bigger pockets thing when I heard it. It's this thing called the Core 4, where like this new investor out of state, their job is to go find the Core 4, which is like agent, contractor, you know, broker, you know, whoever they are. And that, Brian, doesn't sit well with me. I want investors who are going out of state into an area where they don't know anyone to find other successful investors. Because if you can find other successful investors and get in their orbit or their universe, they will give you some level of protection, some access to their Rolodex. Don't use them or whatever. I do think the Core 4 is important. I just think too many people think it's the most important. They rush out, make 4 phone calls, make 8 phone calls, get a list of 4 people, but have no context. Those 4 people could be deadbeats for all they know. They just have a good story over the phone. So I think getting around other successful investors in communities like ours gives you at least some level of protection and information.
Yeah, I think, yes, I think if you belong to a network like my program, like yours, Mike, I think that is a great place to start. I also think, though, if you're not fortunate to be in a network, a program, a mentorship, and you're just out there on your own, I think the Core 4 is critical.
Because no, I agree. I agree it's critical. Where I have apprehension is you make it first. Because if you make it first, people can be busy and not get good people, right? How many out-of-state investors in California go to Detroit, spend some time online looking at BS reviews, tell themselves they got the Core 4, but have no validation, no double checking? That's my apprehension. I think the Core 4 is instrumental, hands down. It's not first. That is my problem.
For me, I've been investing remotely for 13 years now.
Okay.
And the Core 4 has been the most critical for me, quite honestly.
Okay.
Starting with the agent being that linchpin, because he or she already, if they're investor friendly, have other investors that they work with. So they typically have contractors already that are reputable, title companies, like all the working components that you may need. And they essentially become your de facto project manager in that process. The challenge I have with getting around other successful investors in that market, if there's no bridge in, like being a part of a network where you guys all have a vested interest, is that, I mean, if they're really steamrolling in their business, the likelihood of them giving you their A players is slim to none anyway. So while they may give you a referral, they're not going to give you a referral at the expense of slowing down their business if it's really moving in the right direction. And so, you know, and referrals, while they are great, contractors are so fickle that they may use a certain group of individuals on that referral rehab, but they use a totally different crew on yours. And so I think at the start, at the apex of it all, has got to be education. You have to know how to hold every single person, every single tentacle of your business. You need to have enough working knowledge of what they're supposed to do so that you can hold everybody accountable to what's supposed to be happening on your behalf. Because you can go out there blindly without the education, get a referral, and that referral still screw you over because you don't know how to effectively hold them accountable.
Yeah. Yeah. At the end of the day, this topic is very near and dear to my heart. The acquisition is the easy part. I know it feels hard if you're doing the work and there's no deals and all of that, but there's only one closing day, but you're going to own it for years. And it's the operations that matters.
100%. 100%.
So, Brian, where can people find you?
Brian Adamson Official on YouTube, Brian Adamson Official on Instagram. A lot of you guys leave comments, which I appreciate so much on YouTube. But if you want to have like a conversation, please send me a DM on Instagram.
Yeah.
I love to expand. It's just easier there, guys. So send me a DM at Brian Adamson Official on Instagram.
Yeah, there's a rule I have on YouTube. I reply to the first comment, never a second. I don't have conversations in YouTube. That's exactly. I just can't do it anymore. Brian, exactly. Thank you so much.
Thank you, man.